What's going on, guys? JHoyt back with you today. Welcome back to Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and we're back. We actually have I think it's the new CDL playlist. So finally we have a CDL playlist, but the only bad thing is it's not really like league play. At least it doesn't really feel like it anyway. So that kind of sucks. But even then, we're rocking out on some CDL playlist. And, of course, we got it. It's the post-Atlanta recap. As this past weekend, actually yesterday for me, was the home series hosted by the Atlanta FaZe. And boy, was this a very, I guess, really interesting weekend. Not only for the fact of a lot of really good matches, but some of the best teams didn't do too well, and then some of them did, and then they choked in some matches but didn't look good in them, and just absolute crazy event. But we're here to recap it nonetheless. So the first match of the event, it's gonna be out of order, but in Group A, we have the London Royal Ravens going against the Florida Mutineers. The London Ravens get the 3-1 victory in that one. The hometown team, the Atlanta FaZe, come out in their first matchup against Optic Gaming LA and actually smoke them 3-0 fashion, moving both of those teams on. Jumping down to Group B now, though, we got the first matches of the Minnesota Roker versus the Paris Legion. The Roker in Minnesota take that one 3-1. And then this one was a lot closer than people probably would have expected. The Chicago Huntsmen faced off against the Toronto Ultra. Now, there's a lot of teams in the CDL that do not look like they should be a good team, or they don't look like they should be a good team at all, and Toronto's one of them. So they came out and actually showed a lot in this one, a lot closer than it probably should have been, but Huntsmen come away with that Game 5 victory. Jumping up on the top side of the bracket now, we had the Atlanta FaZe going up against the Royal Ravens in the first, I guess, qualifying round, would you call it that? I don't really know. But the Atlanta FaZe get that victory 3-1 in that one. Then we drop down to Group B as the Chicago Huntsmen faced off against the Minnesota Roker. Huntsmen come away with a 3-1 fashion. Unfortunately, I was not able to watch a lot of these matches. I was really only to watch, I think it was 2 matches the entire event. So kind of sucked overall. But we move back up to Group A. So we got some losers bracket to catch up to. Losers round 1 featured the Florida Mutineers and Optic Gaming Los Angeles. Florida comes away with the 3-1 fashion, knocking Optic out of the tournament. They move on to face a loser of that Atlanta and London game. Florida come away with a Game 5 victory, moving them on to the playoffs. In Group B, we had Paris and Toronto. Paris comes away with the 3-1 victory in that one. That would put Paris moving on to the loser against Chicago and Minnesota. Minnesota lost that one, so they go up against Paris, and they take that 3-1. Now, this is where it gets interesting. We're down to our final 4 teams. We have the Atlanta FaZe, the Minnesota Roker, the Chicago Huntsmen, and the Mutineers. Now, we obviously have the huge teams of Atlanta and Chicago. But then Minnesota, they've done all right this year. They haven't really done too great, but kind of surprising that they're there. Then you had Chicago, again, obvious. And then you had the Florida Mutineers. Now, they're a decent team, but, you wouldn't really expect them to be there. So it was really kind of strange pairing there. But we'll start on the top side with the hometown team. We had the Atlanta FaZe going Game 5 versus Minnesota. They actually reverse swept them. Reverse sweep. That's got to feel good if you're Atlanta. I was honestly really hoping Minnesota would have taken that, since, it would have been a lot better of a matchup since Chicago already beat them in this tournament. So that would have been pretty great. However, it's not in the cards for this one. Atlanta move on to the grand final of their own homestand. And then we just needed one more top team to get there, and that should have been the Chicago Huntsmen. But just like the Atlanta series, a reverse sweep. Huntsmen actually lose this one. And I'm just going to say it. Chicago had some good moments this tournament, but they did not look top form. So I don't know if it was just the fact that, you know, obviously we're probably focusing on Atlanta, like, mainly, right? Obviously those are the two top teams, and you know, Chicago did really well in Minnesota opening weekend. They won the London tournament, I guess if you want to call it a tournament. And then they go into this one trying to secure that spot as the #1 team in the game. And I don't know if that focus just wasn't there, if they were just underestimating their opponents. Be like, oh, we'll just smoke them and we'll just move on. But whatever the mindset, whatever the results were in this one, they just didn't come to fruition at the end. So that moved the Florida Mutineers into the finals against Atlanta FaZe, and this one wasn't really that close. Atlanta FaZe sweeps the Florida Mutineers in the grand final, securing their own home stand. So although this was a crazy event, there's a lot to look back on and realize how good this event actually was. There was a lot of game 5s, not many sweeps. There's only, what, 2 sweeps the entire weekend, and they were both by Atlanta over Optic Gaming and then Florida. So, I mean, there was some pretty good games. I mean, I was able to watch the Sunday match with Florida, you know, at least half of it anyway. But that leads us into the post-game, or post-Atlanta power ranking standings, you know, whatever you really want to call it. And it looks like this on your screen. So it's still topped in green with the Chicago Huntsmen. They do get 20 points in this one. I'm not exactly sure when Chicago, I guess, has a bye week, I guess you'd call it, or a bye tournament, or like is not there, because obviously on the right you can see events played. So they have been in every event so far. Atlanta FaZe missed the last event, so they sit in second right now, only 20 points behind Chicago, which is the two top teams in the game right now. I would say arguably, but pretty clearly, I would say. In third place, we had the Paris Legion. They move up, I believe, a spot or 2 from the last time. Florida Mutineers are now top 4 with the Minnesota Roker and the London Royal Ravens. Then in 7th place, you had Dallas. They did not attend this event, along with the LA Gorillas, the New York Subliners, and the Seattle Surge. None of those teams that I just listed, those 4, did not compete at Minnesota, so those guys are all still down there. And then the Toronto Ultra didn't move anywhere, so they still sit technically top 8 as far as points wise. And then you have in last place Optic Gaming LA, yet to win a map, not a map, yet to win a series so far here in the Pro League. It was an absolute crazy event. I mean, besides Dallas, once they kind of get up to that top 5 range and they kind of reach their, I guess, expected results here in COD Modern Warfare, it should look pretty even. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's gonna be a 3-way tie for eventually for that #1 spot. I mean, it could be just a 2-way tie depending on how Dallas ends up completing the year out here. But all in all, crazy event. Love to see it. I think we're heading to LA next, I believe. And I believe Chicago is going to be there. So it's not the bye week or the bye tournament next time. But anyway, guys, I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, hit that like button down below. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. And as always, guys, we'll see you next time.